So now you're going to need to go back and find your brush settings panel. If it's not open, you'll need to open it. You're going to need your brush tool, and it needs to be black. Let's go ahead and on this very top layer, I'm going to go ahead and name this layer text. I'm going to go and find the new brushes I just created, which are most likely at the bottom. So I'm going to start with the one that has the name. And obviously we want the brush tip shape, and you see how big it is. I don't want it that big, so I'm going to reduce the size of it. That might be a little bit on the small side, maybe around there to start off with. Okay, and then I'm also going to I'm going to increase the spacing by a lot because I don't want the words to overlap each other. Okay, then I need to go to Shape Dynamics, and I want to adjust the size jitter because I want to have different sizes as I brush. I'm going to adjust the minimum diameter a little bit, and I'm going to adjust the angle jitter so that the names and the words come in at different angles, and the roundness just a little bit. And then I'm going to go in, I'm going to Control 0 so that my page is full screen, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to brush. Okay, and I'm going to do some little zigzags and some patterns, and I can see that that's kind of small, so I'm going to actually increase the size of it again quite a bit and go around. I don't need to fill in everything, okay, because remember I have 3 more words that were put into brush strokes that I need to do. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and choose the next one. And don't assume that your brush settings are going to be accurate for each word or be the same. You're going to need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to start with the size and the spacing, and then Shape Dynamics, size jitter, minimum, angle, roundness, and then I will start painting. And again, you need to make sure that you are using black, and you will see why later. We will add color, okay, but for now it needs to be black. Okay, and we do want to try to make sure that we start filling in gaps now with these last 2 brushes. Size, reduce it a little bit. You know what, I might make this one a little bit bigger than the others. Shape Dynamics. And you know that you can do single clicks too, but because we have those jitters set in the Shape Dynamics, it allows us to actually brush instead of just clicking. All right, and one more. Spacing. Check the size. I'm going to leave this one on the higher side too. Kind of in between there. And then shape. And then I shall finish this off. And again, pay attention to where you have holes. We want to fill in holes to make sure that we don't have a lot of empty white space. We want to be able to differentiate the words from each other and read what they are, but we don't want to have a bunch of empty space. Okay. All right. So I think that looks good there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide those two layers so that all I can see right now is my black and gray layer. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that layer and I'm going to choose Control A to select all. You see the marching ants around the outside of this photo. Then I'm going to Control C to copy. Okay, that copies all of those pixels. Then I'm going to turn this layer back on, both of those layers back on, and I'm going to go to the text layer and I'm going to add a layer mask. So you're going to see down here at the bottom of your layers panel, this rectangle with the circle inside of it, that applies a layer mask. So nothing happens yet, okay? All that did was apply what looks like another white layer next to it. But if we Alt and click on this thumbnail, so you have to hold down the Alt key and click, then we can Control V to paste our selection, Control D to deselect, select in, hang on one second. Actually, instead of, I'm going to undo that. Instead of Control V, notice that we have Paste Special. We're going to do Paste in Place. Okay? That puts it in the exact same spot. I don't know if you noticed that it was up a little bit. So Control Shift V puts it in the exact same place. I'm going to deselect again. And then I'm going to hit Control I, and that is going to invert my black and gray, and it actually looks like a negative of a photo now. Okay, so now if I click on this, so this is the mask, this is the layer, what shows through? The text that I put up there, the text. So if you look at the thumbnail, you can tell that the white is what is showing through. The white part of the mask shows through. And of course you don't have just white, you had gray as well, okay? The black does not show through. So it's the white, and then you can see places where it is lighter. That's where the gray is, okay? So now you could, if you needed to, if you thought that you had missed some spots, you could go in right here on this layer and add more text, okay? Which I might do a few little ones, and you could go and you could do all of them. They don't have to be, it doesn't have to be one or the other, okay? You could spray all of them in there, okay? And then there's nothing over there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create another new layer, and this layer, what I want to do is maybe have a couple of these words kind of like sprouting out from various places. So maybe if I go to my brush, this was the loving one, so I can come up here and maybe reduce the size a bit. There we go. And then shape dynamics. I actually probably only going to do single click, so I'm actually going to undo shape dynamics here. And I'm going to do a loving right about there. I'm going to go and do his name and go check the shape dynamics. Not the shape dynamics, the brush tip shape. And checking the size, making it a little bit smaller. Okay, and then I will go and athletic. That one's kind of large. And then one more. That was the smart one. Reduce it a little bit. And maybe do a couple of those. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to save these as swatches. So if I get my eyedropper tool and find my swatches panel, and again, all my panels are up here under window, I can use the eyedropper and click on each of these colors and look at them show up here. Okay, so then I can double click on that layer and I can choose gradient overlay. And there are some preset gradients here, but we can make our own by double clicking on this. So if I come here and I can select a color, and then maybe, I don't know if I want the other end, I think I want the other end to be dark, and click OK, and then I can make other spots here in the middle with the other colors. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I think this is the one that's left. Yeah. And I maybe I want to move that a little bit. Maybe I want the dark one in the middle. Okay. So it's up to you how you do it. But there I have a monochromatic color scheme and I can apply it here. And I can also, instead of me going through that again for this layer, I can hold the Alt key down and click and drag on that effects, and it copies the effects to this layer too. So now you can see all of that there. So I used Adobe Color that you can open from your Adobe Creative Cloud. And in Adobe Color, I already had a couple of color schemes that I liked and had used before. Whoops, that's not what I meant. And they were in my library. So they were here in my library in Photoshop. So what I did is I wanted them as swatches. I used my eyedropper tool to click on a color and it would show up here in my swatches. Okay, and I would do that until I got all of them done. So there they are. Then I am going to create a new layer. I didn't mean to do that. Create a new layer. I have the ones below it hidden. And I am going to go to a website called lipsum.com. And I'm going to create 10 paragraphs of lorem ipsum. It's dummy text. And so I'm simply going to copy all this. Whoops. And I may not need all of it, but I'm copying it anyway. And then I'm going to use my type tool and I'm going to make a text box that covers my entire screen, and I'm going to paste. And then I'm going to change the color of this to black because it is important that it is also a black. I can change the font, and one of my favorite fonts to use right now is Century Gothic, and I can use my character panel to reduce the size of the font, to increase the size. I can increase the line spacing. I probably want to get rid of some of these paragraph breaks in here because otherwise I wind up with a lot of nothing. And if you see that you have lots of empty space, go ahead and just hit delete. None of this actually makes sense anyway, so it really just doesn't matter. One more and then I'll be good. Okay,